Well, welcome to another workshop by the University of Kentucky's Office of Work Life for our working parents. Today, we're going to be talking about building successful relationships with your children. And our speaker today is Candace Storrer. Can you please take it away, Candace?
Okay. Well, first, I want to thank everyone for coming and taking the time to consider your parenting and discuss a few habits that could even be strategically important in your parenting future. And so, my name is Candace Storr, and I have been coaching parents since 1993. Technically, that's when I started in college, but actually, my actual career kicked off in 2003. So it's been, like 20 years or so. So I've hit a lot of questions that people have, answered them wrong, answered them right. Most important, though, I can tell you that I have 7 children of my own. One of them is adopted. So I went through that situation with different emotions with that. And so I feel like I have a pretty rounded knowledge. Right now, I work for the University of Kentucky. I'm actually an early care and education training coach. So all of the things put together, I'm now able to help people make really awesome trainings. And I decided to come on here and help out a little bit because I just love parenting. I love kids. I love parents. I think I love parents more than kids because they're so courageous. So that's enough about me. But I wanted to let you know kind of what we're going to be doing today. And I did not put it together like a training, but I did have a little PowerPoint. I only have like 8 PowerPoints because I don't want to just teach you from a PowerPoint. So we just talked about what your situation is. Everyone, a lot of you put something into the chat so I could kind of see the ages. And we do have, just so everyone knows, we have a big span. We have like not born all the way up into young adults into their 20s. So the first habit that I want to share with you, and I'm going to share these three habits. One of them I call the car, and that's for bonding. The other one is called questions, and that's listening. And the other one is the progress, about growing together with your child. And then after that, we're going to do some questions and answers. After each one of those, we will have some time when we're going to talk a little bit. So this is a workshop where we're a little bit more engaged. And just as Azetta said, you won't have your face on the screen. So don't worry if you didn't, put your favorite sweater on today. Okay. So I'm going to jump into, I've got switching PowerPoints onto, I'm going to jump into the car. And there is some habits that we create. See, there's some habits that we create in the car. And one of those habits that is often created in the car is that we like turn that radio up really loud, or everyone is in their own world in the car. And I want to share a habit with you that you can build, you can work like today, you can start it today. And that is to make the car a place of communication. And that is to make the car the place that a child can have a one-on-one with a parent. Probably a lot of you are thinking, yeah, I actually get some pretty good conversations with my child in the car. Sometimes, so if you have little children, you might hand them some kind of device or something so they can play. And I would say that's not to your advantage to set up the communication space when they're 15. So you want to build the spot that they are excited to get in the car and they know that's a safe place to talk with you. I used to, in all of my parenting, I gave my little bit of my background, and one of the things that I got to do was to work with teenagers, and I would pick them up from school and we would be in the car, and I had satellite radio. I would let them choose one of their very favorite songs, but it had to have no naughty words because they knew Miss Candace didn't really like that. So they would choose a song, and I had this big moonroof, and we would lean back in the car and we would listen to the song. And after the song, I learned the best thing I could do was keep my mouth shut. So the song would be over, I would turn off the radio, and we would sit there. And that was such an important thing to learn how to do, because when you stop talking, they start talking. And sometimes they don't start talking. But when they want to, they will. So that's an important thing in the car. I would just, if you have little children, you're going to avoid giving them things that will keep them quiet. Go ahead and let them talk to you in the car. Now, we're going to get into a different habit to create, and that's about questioning. So I'm just going to touch this briefly. In the car is not the place to question your child about their day. That's not the place to do it. It's where you want to do it because you want to know, but it's not the right time. You'll end up shutting them down, and then you'll never get the information that you want. So a couple of ways to build up the conversation in the car, because you're like, well, I already have a kid that gets in the car and just puts their earplugs in or whatever. Talk about yourself in the car. So you can say, like, okay, so for me, this really happened. And I really did have this conversation with my child today in the car. Now she's 23, but still. So 24. So I got in the car with her and I said, I'm so glad you came to pick me up. I really appreciate it. And then I said, this crazy thing happened to me. My whole bed tipped over last night. I'm on a twin air mattress that's really tall. And I woke up and I looked at the clock and boom, my mattress fell over, and it was so funny. And we could giggle about that. Then that gives her an opportunity to share anything that she wants to share. And I just keep quiet and let her share or not share. Grilling our kids about their day is going to shut them down. So for instance, if you had a rough day at work, let's say your computer froze right in the middle of something important that you were in charge of, you lost it, and then all these things happened. You don't want to have someone say, oh, you look really tired. Was your day horrible? Like you just need some time to decompress. So we're going to let our kids have that time to decompress. So I wanted to open up a little bit right now to see if anyone has had any experiences about talking to your kids in the car, or what you do in the car with your kids. You can chat or you can just come off mute.
This is Angie Hensley, College of Nursing. Thank you so much. This is excellent. I'm learning so much already. So I have an 8th grader and then I have a kindergarten, and it sounds like I do the wrong thing. As soon as they get in the car, I start asking them lots of questions. How was their day? What'd they have for lunch, and etc. So thanks for this new great information.
You're welcome, Angie. I think it's because we love our kids so much. We just want to know everything that happened when we weren't there. And okay, I will tell you that I have one child that loves to tell me her day, and I'll be like, wait till I'm ready. And then I'll say, okay, go. And she'll actually, well, she's big now, but she would tell me what happened from the moment she woke up to the moment she went to bed. Like when she was 16, 17, I loved it, but I had to set that up. I had not be purposeful about building that relationship with her. And that's what we want to talk about, is purposeful communication that builds your relationships. So you're probably thinking, well, how do I find out all that information? How do I find it out if I don't ask it in the car? Well, we're going to get to the next session, which is questions. So I'm going to show you how to do that. In the chat, it says, we carpool a lot. How do I get a conversation going with friends in the car? That's a good question. What I would say is keep it personal to you and funny things or interesting things to you, because that'll still loosen your child up to talk later. So you can, if the kids, it depends on the age. If the kids are talking with each other, then you kind of got to stay out of their conversation a little bit so that they just talk, but you can listen. But if they're younger kids, then you can say, oh my goodness, I saw the funniest thing. Whatever. I saw a man do a flip off his bike and land on his feet. It was so weird, or whatever was weird that day. It just depends on how old the kids are when you're carpooling. I used to carpool for cross country, and I was the pickup. I don't know if any of you have ever done a pickup from cross country when kids have been running, 15 miles, 10 miles, and they don't smell very good. That was very hard for me to engage those kids because I was just like, like it was very difficult. So it doesn't always work, but there are other times that you're in the car with your child that you don't have other kids in the car. Okay, Kelly says, my 4-year-old and I have about 15 minutes in the car between dropping his brother off and heading to school. He doesn't always talk, but when he does, it's very fun to let him guide the conversation. He has a very good imagination and likes to tell me stories. I love that. Or hear him ask questions about what we are seeing as we drive. That is perfect. Keep that going. He's 4 now. And if you keep that going and don't shut him out, he will be 14 and telling you about a girl that he thinks is really cute. And that's a whole nother conversation that I didn't put in here. Like judging, I didn't put that in there, but yeah, that's excellent. That's a good example. So let me go over here to my notes. I wanted to point out that the dinner table, hopefully we still have dinner at the dinner table, and that's a great time to connect as a family. It's not the greatest time to drill your child in front of the other kids, you know, or in front of somebody else who might be there, unless it's just the two of you. The dinner table should also be a protected space, just like the car is a protected space. The dinner table is a place to enjoy each other. You don't want them to like, I don't want to go, like they're going to all look at me and mom's going to know. Like we want to give them other places where they can talk. So, and the car will become that later as they grow up. Okay. So the first habit you're going to all think about and think I do great at, or I'm going to get better at, is the car, and making that a great spot. So that was my questions. The next one is expecting change. I think I got them out of them. Doesn't matter. They can be out of order. So I want to explain a little bit about the ages that your children are, and you have to develop with them. So when you have a baby that's 0 to 2, you're really keeping them alive. You're keeping them alive. You're keeping them from falling on the steps, all these things. You're feeding them all these things. And your main thing is to give comfort and stability so that they can feel confident that their needs are being met. So you're keeping them alive. From 2 to 4, you're teaching them about boundaries. You're always teaching boundaries, and you're always teaching all of these things, but it's just like the more specific things. So you're teaching them that they need to stay in their room when they wake up in the morning and you know, take care of themselves until it's time to come out, or whatever your family boundaries are. You're teaching them. From 4 to 7, it's more like social skills and, you know, being nice to people, and most importantly, being kind to their family. Then you get to 7 to 10, and you're teaching daily skills like self-maintenance and all of that. And then you get to 10 to 12, and this is where it all falls apart for most people. 10 to 12. So the rest of it's very common and very simple for y'all. You know, we all just like, we're just teaching our kids everything's great. And at 12 years old, boom, what happens? Why my 12-year-old all of a sudden doesn't like me? It's falling apart. I used to have this little kid that used to talk to me, and now they don't want to talk to me. Okay, I'm just going to give you a quick helper right here. Grow with the kid. If you have a teenager, a preteen that's starting to pull away, one, know that they are changing, and when they're 11 and 12, they feel like an adult. They're not. Their prefrontal cortex is not there. So don't give them all that, you know, don't treat them like an adult completely, but just know that they feel like an adult. And if you keep parenting them like you did when they were 7, they're going to pull back. So the way to keep the connection when your child is getting older is to know where they are developmentally and keep understanding that they're growing developmentally. And sometimes as parents, we turn those wonderful first time moments, like they walked, they did this. When they get older, all of a sudden those are expectations. Like we expect them to do this, and we don't really enjoy it or revel in it. We expect it. And that puts a lot of pressure on them, such as we expect them to know how to react in a certain social situation. And if they don't, they're embarrassing us. right? You have to remember that they are still developing and we parent them differently. So how do we parent them when they're 12, 13? What do we do to keep the connection going that you worked so hard for? At this point, you're really going to listen. When you talk, they're going to hear this anyway. Wah, 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 wah. They're not, you need to listen and try not to judge them a lot. So you have a 12-year-old that's going to tell you you've set up a good relationship. So now they get in the car, you're about 10 minutes into your ride home, and your kid says, my best friend is having a hard time because her boyfriend, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, 12? They shouldn't have a boyfriend at 12. No wonder they're having problems. They don't know how to have a relationship at 12. Yeah, you could say that. Then your kid's going to like shut down. So that's a time when you can say, yeah, it's really hard when your friends are struggling. What did you say? What did you say? What are you doing to help? Like, what are you saying? So that is a different way of connecting with that child by asking them what they would do or what they have done. What do they think is best? Refrain from offering your advice or your opinion until they ask for it. Or until you offer it, you can say, well, I did have something like that happen. Do you want to hear about it? And they might be, yeah. And then now they're going to listen to you. But if you automatically go into, when I was a kid, we weren't allowed to date at this age, or when I was a kid, do you see how you can be shutting a kid down when they're, that young to where they're not going to talk to you? Does that make sense? Okay. So someone just put on there that they have already experienced a pretty young child doing something that is a very grown-up thing. So this is where you go back to your training. So you taught, I'm sure you did, because we all do this naturally. You taught boundaries and you taught keeping him alive when he was really young. You teach him about social skills. What I would do first is I wouldn't freak out and shut him down. You cannot freak out and still be giving boundaries. It's not just because you don't like get really, really angry doesn't mean that you're okay with the action, right? So you have to go back to boundaries. We just had a really good workshop on drugs that's probably recorded that Azetta can probably send you if you missed it. But it was really good, like giving them the information that they need to have and then letting them know that's an adult choice and they're not allowed to make that adult choice yet. But there will be a time when they can make that adult choice. And then you can tell them when your family boundaries are for that. You could be like, when you're 18 or maybe when you're out of the house, but right now that's an adult choice that I get to hold. And then you can put consequences to it. And that again is a family decision of what those consequences would be. Some parents would do the education piece and then they would maybe set a boundary there, but I wouldn't make it something like that. If you don't handle it right, they're just going to hide it from you. So you just want to not be punitive, but you want to go back and claim the adult pieces of their life for your own still, but then tell them, I know you're growing and you are going to make decisions and I'm really excited to see the good decisions you're going to make. This one, not such a good decision. So I'm going to keep that one. Okay, so a 17-year-old daughter, this is another one, growing with her. At 17, I absolutely am telling you, she thinks she's an adult. She absolutely almost believes it and probably has a body of an adult. So when she asked what you thought of him and turned it back on her to ask her, what do you think of him? I do like that. I like that. It really depends on the kid. Like if she's asking, if you have a close relationship and she says, what do you really think of him? And if you really don't like him, I wouldn't just say, I don't like him. I would say, there's this part of his personality that worries me just a little. And I want to tell you why, but I really like this part of his personality. So always always sandwich it. You've all been taught to sandwich negative comments. So always sandwich it between. Maybe, like, maybe he's older than you, so he already owns all of his adult decisions. And so maybe that worries you. So does that help a little bit, give you an idea? So these are, okay, good. Mostly just remember developmentally, it's expect them to change and change with them. And your change is just as hard as theirs is. Just know that. And because of our little needs assessment, some of you have to parent differently for different ages, all in the same house and all at the same time. You have a 3-year-old and you have a 17-year-old. You have a 15-year-old and you might have a 25-year-old that's living in the house too. And so you have to parent differently at the same time. Yes, different rules, different kids. It makes no sense to give a 4-year-old the same kind of parenting you would that 11-year-old. It's different. And how do you do that? How do you tell that to your children? You tell them that they deserve the parent that they need. And if they start comparing and say, well, Josh gets to do this and Josh gets to do that, and you can say, I've worked with Josh for a whole 15 years and he's getting what he needs. And you're 7 and I've been watching you and you will get what you need to. I'll be the best I can for you too. And you turn it back on them. Then they like are really confused. So I hope that helps a little bit. Those of you parenting big gaps or multiple children. My kids were, the youngest was born when my oldest was 9.5. So there are 7 children, and the one we adopted fits right in. Like I could have given birth to him in that frame. He fits right in. So there was, a 9.5-year gap between the baby and the oldest one, which isn't a lot. So at one point I had 5 teenagers in my house. And that's why I have all of this gray hair. All of it. So I'm going to open it up to questions again. We've been doing a few questions. If you want to come off mute and share an experience you've had with developmental parenting in a positive way, I'd love other people to share their good experiences with following their child's development. We're still learning a little bit. Okay. I am going to PowerPoint to back up because I missed one. I think I didn't put listen in there. The progress, grow together. We're going to talk about listening right now. So I'm going to move on to listening. We talked about briefly in the car, not grilling your kids, right? And that was one that everybody was like, oh yeah, I totally do that. Totally do that. How do you get the information you need? How do you know if that library book was turned in or if what grade they got on that project you helped them with? Like, how do you know all of those things if you don't ask them? Well, it's very simple. You are organized. You set up a time and a place to do that. It's not that you don't get that information. It's that your child gets used to giving that information because you make it a normal thing. With all of the children I had, I actually did have a time when one after another, I'd have them come sit and talk to me, and they'd show me their folders when they were younger. When they got older, they didn't get in that rotation because, they earned the right to handle their homework themselves and not have me like overlooking it all the time. But I would take extra time with them to do other things where we could talk, like in the car. Or one of my children, she loves to take a walk. And if I needed her to talk to me, I'd say, hey, let's take a walk. And she would just start blabbing. So the littler ones that you have to give them a chance to tell, or you need to find these things out. So I would say it's being organized, whatever it's in. If it's after you eat dinner, if you need to know about homework before dinner, it's only your family, but you've got to figure out an organized way to do it where they're expected to tell you those things. Not everything, but they're expected to give you those answers that you need. Like, do you still have enough money for lunch? all of that stuff. And I wouldn't wait till the morning when you're trying to get to school, because remember, the car is a safe place and you can't grill your kid in the car. Any questions on that one? Does anyone, oh, okay, last night I was, okay, I'm gonna read this one so we can dissect it. Last night I was eating cheese slices and crackers, and my 5-year-old came along and quickly crumbled up all my cheese and smiled at me like he had done something really great. I was like, what? My mom happened to be there and said, developmentally, he's very concrete and thinks he's giving you even more cheese. I just had to look at the crumbs of the cheese like a 5-year-old. Well, I don't know this child, and your mom probably definitely knows the child better than I do. I would think of a couple of things. One, if your 5-year-old just climbs onto your lap and crumbles up the cheese and there's someone visiting your house, maybe they want some attention, you know, and they're just doing whatever they can do to get you to pay attention to them. Not that you're not paying attention, but, you know, maybe grandma's there and they're showing a little bit. At 5 years old, though, I would ask. And at 5 years old, you could say, why did you crumble up mommy's cheese? And at 5, he should be able to tell you why he crumbled the cheese, unless it's an emotional reaction. If it's an emotional reaction to needing attention, he's just going to bounce off and go do something else. You won't get an answer. But if he was trying to give you more cheese, he'll say, look, you have 5 now. So it could be attention. What I would do to help with those situations, sounds like he'll do whatever he can do to get your attention. I would let him know that maybe grandma's coming over and this is what, and so you're going to need some grandma time, but you're going to give him special time right now, or, you know, and do something right now. And then say, after grandma leaves, then we're going to do this. So you give him the now and then phrases. I don't know if that's normal to know that, because I've been parenting so long, but when you have little children, you're always letting them know what's happening now and what's going to happen later. And it really helps to smooth their little world out, and that might calm down. But at 5 years old, you have a child that can respond. You have a child that's making some decisions. They definitely made a decision to do that. And it was kind of mean also. I wouldn't call the child out in front. If you decide it's an attention getter, don't call him out in front of everyone. Wait until you're sitting, you know, maybe you're sitting in bed, going to bed. And you're like, you know, sweetie, when you crumbled up mommy's cheese, it really hurt my feelings because I was hungry. I wish you would have just like come over and got a hug instead, you know, so that you're not embarrassing him. So, okay. Does anyone else have any questions around questioning or around listening, around knowing how to like, it all goes together. So I was trying to like break it apart into little bits and pieces, but it's really hard because it all does mold together. I have another piece to share with you that's not there. Let's see. How do you recommend parenting them for things when your schedule is unexpected? For example, when you have to answer calls for work at home. Okay. Depending on the age of your child, this is an easy one. So I'm really happy to be able to help you with this. Depending on the age of your child, use a visual. When you are taking a work call, there is a certain something that happens. Your voice changes, but they don't know that. They don't know if you're talking to grandma. They don't know what you're doing. So you can use a visual, such as a picture that you put up, maybe a picture of an office, or a picture, like any picture that, whatever, that they can see that you're busy, that you're on a work call. So, so the little one, you're working from home and he's 4. 4 is easier than any other. 4 is easy. Give him a picture, and or even have a little basket of things he only gets to play with when you're on work calls. So maybe his favorite little truck, like some great little truck or something he likes a lot. When you get on the work call and he needs your attention, you show him you're working. You can show him the little sign that you're working, and then give him the little basket, and then let him, and then you have to be consistent and let him know that when your work call is over, he has to give back the basket. He'll be waiting for those work calls. He'll be waiting. Even though I check in, my 12-year-old is not keeping up with school assignments and last minute emergency assignments, requests for help. Do I let her figure it out on her own? This is one of the things you have to decide to, with each child, you can't rescue a child, but you cannot let them fail until they have the skills to be successful. So for this one, I don't know this 12-year-old, do they understand how to do their assignments a little at a time, like if it's a project? Do they understand that they have to prioritize their time over their play, over their work? And if they do understand those things, and they've proven that they understand those things, let them go. If you have a child that's constantly not keeping up with school assignments and needs last minute, help, that's when it looks like you have a skill you need to teach here. And so I wouldn't let them fail and flounder, because it looks like there's a skill. And that skill could be simply thinking ahead, asking for help early. This could be during your time when you have set apart a time to talk to your 12-year-old about school, which is going to be a lot less than an 8-year-old. But you might do it once a week and say, hey, what projects do you have coming up this week? What are you doing in social studies? You have that project in there. Are you going to need help with that? Because, mom's really busy this week, and I want to make sure that I have time to relax with you, and have a good time and not just be spazzed out about this project. That's the time to ask that kind of a question. But yeah, don't let them, if you let them fail before they have the skill, then it's really damaging on their self-confidence. They don't know they don't have the skill. They don't know what they don't know. You're the parent, so you get to help teach them the skill and break it down for them. And yeah, you might be doing a little hand holding. It's not uncommon to be disorganized at 12. But remember, they feel like adults, so you can't talk to them like they're 4. So good, I'm glad that was helpful. Any other questions before I give you my bonus? Back talking. Okay.
Candace,
So,
there was another question earlier in the chat talking about the car,
okay,
and
what was
somebody
it?
talking about talking back. What do you do about talking back? That's a question as well.
Okay, was the car one about talking back too?
Oh, no, sorry. No, that was 2 different questions.
Okay, can you search for that one? And I'm gonna
Yes,
respond to Rebecca, and you can go back and look for that one.
absolutely.
Okay, so you have an 11-year-old boy that's talking back. And that would be, my questions would be, is he talking back to just mom, just dad? Is it just like if it was another situation with another child, you would look at what is happening around that time. Is it always talking back? Is it right after school? A lot of times this is going to shock you. A lot of times talking back, we're like, oh, that's disrespectful. That's horrible. They're talking back. A lot of times it's stress, you guys. It is something stressing a kid out. A lot of times there's stress going on, and the person they're going to take that stress out on is going to be the person that will love them, even though they're giving them their worst side. So if you have a kid talking back, I would, not that I'm saying you should let them do it, by no means let them do it. And I'll tell you about that in a sec. But first, I'll tell you what happened. This is an actual true story, really happened. My 16-year-old, I had just come out of a class that day, that was about breaking the negative interaction cycle and family conflict. And it was a wonderful professor. He wrote the textbook, and he had us practice that day. And we had to practice on something in our life. So I went home, and my 16-year-old was giving me what for, like he always did right after school. I mean, I knew how to handle him, and he brought himself home because he was driving himself. Came in, I looked at him, and I realized that he was so stressed out. And I said, Aaron, I'm not going to fight with you. I love you. I know you're really stressed out, but it doesn't matter what you say. I'm not going to fight with you. And he actually got a little belligerent. And then I just said, I'm not fighting with you. And he went to his room. And about 20 minutes, because I know him, I gave him time to come down. And I went down and I said, do you got it? Like, what's going on? And he goes, Mom, you handled me like he called one of my clients. You handled me like I'm one of your clients. I'm like, getting better, aren't I? So you just really have to know your kid. and understand some of that is stress. Now, I wouldn't don't engage with your emotion with that. When they talk back to you, do not get all emotional. He's disrespecting me. I would have talked like that to my parent. My parent would have smacked me if I would have said that or done that. Put that away. Put on your modern understanding that we have about child development and look at him and say, I'm not sure you meant to say that the way it came out. Is that really what you meant to say? You call them like that. See how it happens. See how that affects it a little bit. Up here, how to keep the car a safe space if you're using it for timeouts when outside the house for tantrums. Any alternatives to recommend for timeout when outside besides the car? Okay. You have to have a safe, most important is that your child is in a place where they're physically safe to have a timeout. If timeouts, and I'm not judging how you do your timeouts or anything, I'm just saying if timeouts are, it sounds like this is a calm down place for a tantrum and not really a timeout. Those are two different things. Calm down for tantrum is not timeout. So if you're using it for a calm down for tantrums, you can still just be like, hey, when you calm down here, when you're done, then mommy's ready. When you're ready, I'm ready. And keep it positive. I would never be punitive in the car. Like if you don't stop, I would just be like, when you're ready to talk about this, I'm ready to talk about this, and let them have their time out. If they're tantruming, don't talk to them. This is a whole nother topic, but if you have a tantruming child or a screaming teenager, don't try to reason with them. They don't hear you. Have you ever been crying yourself, hysterically crying? Could you hear anybody? No. So don't try to make contact that way. Just wait. Yeah, this one says, I have a 5-year-old girl that does not care to have any discipline we've tried. She refuses to listen often, no matter the consequence. Okay, I do have an answer for that one too. But I want to make sure that I didn't miss. Okay, that one plays perfect into my bonus. So before I go to my bonus, I make sure. Okay. This takes a little bit of prep, maybe a little fluffy stuff that some of you are not wanting to do or whatever. But I'm telling you, it is so worth it. It is so worth it. And I don't like to tell people to buy stuff. This is $1. Get yourself some poker chips or some little circles. I like the poker chips because how they feel, the tactile feel. On each one, you write, and what we did is we actually glued paper on. You write all the different things that a child learns in their life from little. And we've had it where there's 150 chips, from learning to cry when they needed help, from learning to pick themselves up when they fall, from riding a bike, every single thing that you can think of that your child learned. And then everything they're going to learn. So sorting the laundry, cooking, making cereal, pouring the milk, every developmental phase. I wish I should make this and pass it out. Then when you have a child that's 5 years old and they don't want to have, they don't understand discipline so much, it sounds like she feels more grown up in her head than she feels bigger than she feels like she's being parented. And I'm guessing because I don't know her. But sometimes when they're like that, they're like, I'm not a baby, and they want to do more. So these chips are really great because you can sit with her, not when she's in trouble, and you can sit with her and you can say, all of these, when you've done all of these things, then you will have grown-up responsibility and you'll be able to make grown-up decisions. Let's see how many of them you can do. And then you can sit with her and say, yep, I can do this, and yep, I can do this, and yep, I can do this. And then you can actually make a goal for the next one. Let's say she's 5. So maybe the next one is picking out her own clothes or whatever. Then you say, okay, well, you're not quite here yet, but you're going to be. And then you set a goal for it. Now, I hope you all understand how that's laid out. And you can use that from every stage. You're 14 years old, and the next thing that they really need to know how to do is maybe you want them to do their own laundry completely, or whatever it is. You can set the goal. But the other thing that goes with those are the ability to make adult choices and have adult consequences. And it kind of goes together. So they're learning how to be an adult, and you're giving them all these skills. But you can say to your 5-year-old, like, honey, you see all these things you have to learn. You don't get to do that. Not yet, because you can't drive a car until you can pour your own milk. You know, like, you can't like make it funny, but you can lay it out and show them that they're not grown up yet. So this one, so I already messed up. I smacked his mouth for talking back and screaming in my face. I apologize, but the next day he didn't seem to hold it against me. He hasn't talked back though. Well, what I would say is I wouldn't brush that under the rug. I wouldn't brush under the rug. I would just say, when you're in a good spot with him, like you're having a good talk, you're like, you know what? I felt really, really bad that I did that. Like that was my reaction and I shouldn't have done that. But I really wish you would talk to me instead of lashing out at me and being sassy. I really wish you would talk to me. And I don't like to have that relationship with you. I don't want to go to that spot with you. I don't want to go to where we're hurting each other, because you're my kid and I love you more than anything. And I don't want to be in that place. So it depends on how old your child is, if you can talk like that. But that's the kind of talk you can have, even with the 9-year-old, you know, even 8, you can talk like that, being like, that's not the relationship I want. I want you to be able to talk to me, and I don't want to be, you know, losing my cool. So let's see. Does everyone kind of understand the CHIPS method of helping your child grow up? Okay. Does anyone, okay, I have literally like 2 more minutes. Is there anything else that's like on somebody's mind and you're like, you know, that was all good, but that's not my problem. This is what I need help with for relationships. Okay. 10-year-old who doesn't seem to put the pieces together, not doing the nightly routine, brushing the hair, okay, responsibilities, chores, without being reminded so much. I want to tell you, Amanda, absolutely 100% developmentally appropriate and on target 10-year-old. This is skills that you're teaching at that age. So yeah, so just depending on this child that I don't know, you're going to pick something. You're going to hold hands with that 10-year-old to do the other things, but you're going to pick something. So maybe the nightly routine involves certain things, and you might even have to, like at 10, they can read, you don't have to make it pictures. So at 10, you can even like make a list, put it on the mirror, have them check it off, like make it fun, tell them, you know, we all have to learn these skills, and try not to do it without, like, you're 10 years old, you know, you need a shower, go get a shower, like go in there and clean up. And if it's a child of the opposite sex, you might not want to go in there and make sure that they wash themselves, but you can make it funny, and you can also say, you know what, let's go get some really good smelling body soap. And that might make them want to take a bath and, you know, get their stuff. And just at 10, it's so hard for them. That's totally appropriate. You just have to teach them. You're not done teaching those self-maintenance skills yet. And then regulating my own emotions when the patience is at 0. Yeah, you need to meditate or something. Like that's a whole nother thing. That is a whole nother thing. I would say, remember your child is growing and developing, and so are you. You're still growing and developing as a parent. You lose your temper, your patience goes out the window. Remember, are you stressed at work? Is there something else stressing you? Is it really this child that's stressing you? And take a breath, because it's better to say nothing than to go 0 to 100. It's better to say nothing. The one who wants friends around all the time and isolates when you say no, they're holding you at bay. That child is bullying you into making them happy. I'm just telling you, let them pout it out. Don't fall prey to that. Like, I want Missy to come over. No, we're just gonna have family time. Okay. And then they're miserable during family time, and then you feel sad because they're sad. No. That's them manipulating to get what they want. And yes, children can be manipulated, and we as parents are manipulating them too. So be very matter of fact with that, and let them know, hey, you can have a friend over on Saturday and on Wednesday, and that's it. Don't ask another time. And if you ask another time, I'm always going to say no, and just be consistent. We created a checklist, laminated it, and have to use a dry erase marker to check items off. We have one for morning and nights. Great job, Jessica. That's exactly what you need to do. And that's not just for like 3 and 4-year-olds. Sometimes you have to do that for when they're older. Yeah, that's what happens. So I got to tie up, you guys, but I hope that you remember, bond in the car, listen, and grow with them. And the rest, as long as you're trying really hard and you're asking questions and talking to other parents, you're going to be just fine. But we all needed that. I didn't, my first one, I still apologize to him for messing up. I'm like, I said, you turned out good. So he's like, I forgive you for whatever you didn't do right, Mom. So yeah. Does anyone have any other questions? Feel free to. It's been great, you guys. I don't get to do parenting so much anymore. I love my job at, with HDI and training trainers. I love that, but I really miss talking to parents. So I really appreciate you guys letting me come in and just talk with you today. Okay, and then Angie, I saw yours. I'll get back to you afterwards because we'll be out of time. So I will send you an email.